All right, welcome back to Off the Tap. This week is episode 44, and we are doing Back Pew Brewing Company's Blue Testament.
Throwing it back to the old Porter, Texas, P-Town. I don't know if that's actually what they use, but I just made a play off of H-Town. P-Town's not as flattering, but it's
No,
too late now.
especially the longer you think about it. The longer you think about it, the less flattering it gets.
You know how everybody makes a play on, this is the Third Coast. Like you see Third Coast barbecue, Third Coast fishing. It's all the Gulf folks. I wonder if um, Porter shortens their name to Port, and they're the inland port. We're the Portland of the end. Ooh, there's a chance you might have to cut that. All I'm saying is,
We're,
is
we're
right
the
out of the gate,
Portland. Portland.
we're the inner port of H Town, but we're P Town. You know what I'm saying?
P-Town. P-Tizzy.
And it
P-Tizzy.
is.
All right, so yeah, this is the second time I've ever had a Back Pew Brewing. The first time was on the podcast here when we did the Satire Swill, which we were both pretty uh, surprised by, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have had a couple other back pews that I've actually I turned a few people onto. I don't know if you've tried the Hyper Light or some of the other stuff. I've liked everything that's come out of there. What was it? The Swill one? Satire Swill?
Satire Swill, yeah.
I was not prepared for that to be as good because remember I didn't like the graphics on the can. I mean, that's straight judging a book by its cover, but so I'm actually pretty excited to try this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely ready to get into it. It is a Pilsner online. You're gonna have to do the can. This is kind of a fun little part of the podcast, I think, where we get to see how much online lies and how much you can trust online information. But online, the ABVs were coming in at a 5.2.
Yep, confirmed on the can.
All right, we're 100% on that. And 29 on the IBUs. I don't know if the can says that or not.
No, the can does not. One thing that I've noticed is a gluten reduced beverage. So here's what's funny about this. This is giving everybody the option to make an executive decision for that day. They're like, hey, I'm gonna try something that makes me absolutely 100% ill every other day, but we're gonna see if it does it today based on how light in the gluten that it is. Not knocking them for putting it on the can. I appreciate that, but
How,
yeah.
how how light on the gluten are we talking?
I,
Is it gonna take like two of them to make me sick, or you know,
I have
is
no
it gonna take
idea,
a
but
few sips?
one thing that I've noticed, or actually now that I'm just reading the can, I don't know if this was on the Satire Swill. I don't know if we even checked or paid attention. Um, but it says artfully crafted with blessed well water in Porter, Texas. I wonder if that's true or if that's just marketing.
I don't know how you would bless well water.
What do you mean? You can bless well water. You can pump it out of the ground and then bless it.
Oh well, that's fair. I wonder if that's
Yeah,
just a joke though. Like
or what you're. I see the. It probably is a joke, but I see what you were saying. You basically were like, oh, so they bless the well, therefore anything it pumps out of the ground is blessed,
yeah,
and so they could just start selling that as a value added water because their well is fine. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
yeah, exactly. Otherwise, they gotta have a priest on hand
Just
daily.
constant.
They're just filling up buckets in the sink, and he's just blessing it.
Um,
He's on salary, bro.
So this is there according to online. I know we're gonna do a deep dive because we were very interested in the brewery itself, the
Yeah.
history of it, even though it is a very young brewery. But this is, this they do claim as their flagship beer. The Satire Swill is not a seasonal like we had thought. I know that we mentioned that when we tried that one, but this is like the staple of their brand.
Yeah,
This is
this is
the
their most widely known, widely
exactly.
purchased beer. I'm gonna get into it. I can't really get a good sniff going because of my straws in my drink here, so I can't give a I can't experience that for myself, and I'm a little upset about it, honestly.
So great pour, great head. It thins out a little bit. No cloudiness, and for a craft brewery, that's independent, if you will. That seems to be somewhat of a challenge on the crafty taste side. Smells like a beer. Smells like an everyday pint. Like I know
Yeah.
that that usually is a negative connotation to it, but not in this case.
No, it's good. I really enjoy this. Um, yeah, that's pretty good. And you're right, it did get a good head, nice color. Um,
It does.
it's got that going for it.
Again, I know this is gonna sound terrible, but it's like it is a generic American Pilsner, like
Yeah.
in a good way.
Yeah, in a very good way. Not in a not in an overdone way. There's still, I mean, I still
There's
get a
some
little bit of
craftiness to it.
yeah. I still get a
Yeah,
little bit of craftiness in there, especially in the
but
aftertaste.
yep. It doesn't necessarily get bitter. It does have it dries out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Just a
Um,
little bit.
it's enough to let you know that it's a craft, but it's not at this point. It's not enough to take over the flavor. However, as it sits, it's starting to get a little heavier. You know what it's like? It's like you know how when you shell peanuts and there's that little brown casing. Might need to look up what that is, but
Yes.
that little
Like
brown
the
casing that's on.
like the skin of it, kind of.
Yeah, the skin of it. And so like you shake it in your hand, you break that shit loose, and then you just
Yeah.
try to eat the peanuts. Okay. Well,
But you never
pretend
just get the peanut.
no, you never do. But pretend now that like somebody had a bunch of those in their hand and they gave you like your whole hand was full of the casings and they gave you like one peanut, like that bitterness that
Mm,
overcomes the peanut is kind of what you get as the aftertaste sits. I'm not saying that it's terrible, but that's what I equate it to. It's a little
okay.
more than you want. You know it's going to be there, but it's a little more than you want.
Okay. I can see that. It's given me just enough to come back for another sip.
I
You know what I
agree.
mean?
It's yeah.
It's hits you just enough and you're like, "Ooh, I need another sip." So it keeps you coming back for more. That's good.
So on the beer itself, I mean, I know that you there were some things that you definitely wanted to share, but on the beer itself, and now that I'm thinking about it, this is gonna be terrible because when I first tasted it, I was like, oh, this is a Miller Lite, or I mean, this is like a craft Miller Lite or a craft Bush,
Yeah.
maybe a little better than that, but anyways, but then it brought me to this thought. So
Burps are here already.
burps are here. It is we're jumping to this conclusion, but we're assuming that it's called the Blue Testament as a play. You know, it's Back Pew as a play on the New Testament, but because
Right.
the sweetness comes from Texas blue corn that creates the light but rich experience within. So I'm assuming that their wort is made with corn, blue corn.
Yeah. And I would think so. As far as like I think comparing this one to the Satire Swill really quickly branding wise, um I think that this one's more like it goes more generic on its branding. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's more like when I see this logo, I think of Pearl. You know what I mean?
Ooh, yeah. I
That's
mean,
what
in
it
a
looks
bad,
like.
like in a good way, but bad way. Like it might
Right.
as well just say beer on
Yeah,
there.
might as well just say beer. Uh, and that's I guess it could be a good thing considering it's like most well-known beer. I guess it's just kind of like here it is, you know what I mean? But they didn't really do anything super special with this one, and I feel like they kind of could have. It's just like a blue can with a little gold square behind it,
Yeah,
behind the name.
even the font that's on that they write Blue and Testament on looks like it could have come from like word art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even
It
yeah.
looks. It reminds me of Miller.
Yeah, kinda the way
You
that the
know.
B is shaped and the U. There's
Yeah.
probably a I don't know if that's like King James font or whatever that is, but
That's.
um,
It's
I
like
see what you're saying.
your old English standard word font. You know.
Yeah, 100%.
That's old
Also,
English, right?
there's
Am I thinking of something else?
no, that's Old English.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make
Like
sure.
a lot of your graffiti and gang stuff is usually in that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Also, there's like a couple of different. I'm not knocking on it because I do like the beer. I do like the branding, not just because they're close to home, but because everything we've tried or that I've tried from them thus far, I have liked. But also, it seems like they had four different ideas. Like there were four different guys in a room, and they were like, "All right, blue corn, New Testament, Blue Testament, cool. All right, generic marketing, shitty font, shitty background, cheap cans." And then they were also like a flavor that strikes you like a bolt that doesn't relate to Blue, doesn't relate to Testament, doesn't relate to anything. But they were like, cool, thanks, Joe, for coming out. We're putting it on the can too. Also, the bolt is from the Blue. No idea what that is.
I,
Again, I'm not
I don't
knocking
know.
it. I'm just saying I think they wanted everybody included on this one if this was the first one,
Yeah.
you know?
hmm It it's good though.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
about
Yeah.
it.
Back to what's in the can, not so much the branding. But it doesn't have
Yeah.
nearly the satire swill impact. Like we went down that rabbit hole and loved every minute of it.
Yes. Yeah, that was I mean again, both are great. They got a lot of different stuff here on there. I'm looking on their website. Um
So talk to me a little bit about explain to me a little bit. You were saying they've got like some beers that are one thing, some beers that are another. What's up with that?
yeah, so I just wanted to really kind of uh touch on their branding and everything because I was looking up some breweries just for the fun of it, and this was one of them that popped up obviously because it's in the Houston area for me. Um, so I just did a deep dive on them because they're first of all their tap room is really cool. It's actually in an old church, which I think is really cool considering the branding and everything. I mean, Back Pew, your brewery's in a church. That's super sweet. You know what I mean? Um, and they got a bunch of different stuff to do there as well. The interior of the place look nice. But yes, their beers on their website are separated out into saints and sinners, which I think is pretty cool. And I think it's pretty cool that we've tried one from each category now.
Was
Because
the
this,
satire swill a center?
oh yeah, for sure. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
yes, it is on here, but yeah, even based on the way we described it, because we looked up what everything meant for that one too.
Gotcha.
Um, so I mean, obviously they're doing something right because we keep looking them up. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But yeah, and this one is considered a saint. So, and by the looks of it, it's more or less separated by alcohol content. So the higher ABV um,
More of a center.
beers are the center ones. Although there is two saint beers up here that are in the sixes. So
Really?
yeah, we got a IPA and a fruit beer, whatever that is.
So I think
That's one of those new modern craft beers, huh?
it splits at 7% according to the website.
Oh, okay.
That's what it says. So like Saint beers have an ABV below 7 while Sinners go above 7.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I see I mean, on their website here, there's like three center beers that are 6.9, but that's
Okay.
7%
Yeah, I
if you
guess if you're
round up.
rounding.
So I respect it. I think it's a cool little, it's cool branding. They're
It
doing it right, and they
it's
even have them separated at the brewery here, is what it says on like the chalkboards.
Oh, really?
So the Saints are listed in white chalk, and the Sinners are listed in red.
So another thing, back to the church concept, what I find to be interesting as well, this is like a very when we say church, we're not talking like downtown Chicago cathedral. We're talking like old school southern ranch style,
Yes.
flat, sprawled out church, right? Like in the woods, piney woods, dirt pull up. I mean, I don't know if there's paving around it or not, but like imagine you're on a backcountry road that's windy as hell, nothing but pine trees. You happen upon a church, usually accompanied by an immediate cemetery because
Yes.
just the families in the area. It's like that, and it's almost like a T. Not necessarily a cross, but a T, big, wide ranch style, and then like an inlet that comes out to the front with a peak. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, with not like pillars necessarily in the front, but they're not like super grand pillars or anything. But what is that called? The
Like a
the
porticache.
like a porticache, yeah.
This one is, I
That
mean,
style
that
of
this
entry.
that's using the term very loosely. It kind of looks like where they park the family car and the hearse on the side of a funeral home.
Yeah,
It's a very small version of that. It's also, again, they are very consistent with their branding. Their tap room is called the Sanctuary,
it
and so it
is.
has it
Yeah,
has
it's super
their
cool.
hours of operation. Yep.
Yeah, very cool. And I'll tell you what, you just gave me a quick little idea if they haven't done this already or not. But you mentioned the fact that usually an old church is accompanied by a cemetery. They should definitely host some wild Halloween shindigs during the month of October,
You would think so. And there's
or
some
like a
area.
haunted house or something. You know what I mean?
So there's an area that's kind of like a beer garden that's part of the sanctuary outdoor area, and I would imagine so. I think that they have stumbled upon, maybe it's a gift, maybe they set out with this, I don't know. But they really have a lot of things that they can do with that theme. Like
They do.
infinite things they can do with that theme, especially because they have the opportunity to go center route, and they have the opportunity to go to the saint route. You know what I mean?
Yes, because
Seasonals,
you can play with it and you can play against it. You know what I mean? That's the
yes,
fun part.
seasonals are infinite. There's like infinite history on little nuances that they can build upon. So yeah, they're killing it.
And not to even mention the ungodly amount of beer names that you can get.
Did you see what you just did there? See,
I
even
did.
that in itself was a pun, kind of.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, but yeah, so it seems like a really cool place. It's actually close to home too. This would be sweet if we could go there and enjoy. I think they do have most everything on available in the sanctuary at all times. But if not, they do have an updated list online.
Yes.
One other
This
thing
would
I
be
was
a
going to
this would be
mention.
a great place to go and do a live episode. Do a flight episode, if you will.
Oh,
That'd be cool.
yeah, I could do that. On that note too, so Bobby, just because I wanted to include this, I was intrigued by his history. So originally from the Houston area, but Bobby Harrell is a PhD and has an MBA from Vandy. He worked with a group of folks out there before returning back to the mothership. Actually, he started, I think, his own gig at Back Pew in 2014. Hadn't brewed beer or even thought about brewing beer at all until 2008. So very short run of discovery, but dude's dialed in. So I think it just goes to show that like people that appreciate beer or people that like the pursuit of flavors, the pursuit of branding, the pursuit of the story, the pursuit of selling, um, selling the brand or selling the culture that surrounds the beverage can do it pretty quickly if they're passionate enough about it. So shout out to Bobby Harrell, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah, definitely shout out to him. I think, I mean, we're both also business minded people. And that's why we always like to talk about the marketing and stuff that goes along with beer. And I think that's maybe why this
It's so
particular
intriguing.
brewery, yeah, intrigued me so much. But it is kind of interesting that he came back, never has been in beer before, and has built. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's a huge empire, but it's an incredible brand, and that's just his business mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also I
So
mean,
that's
here's
pretty
the other
cool.
thing. Uh, they're also great beers. Like that's what we keep like
Yeah.
overlooking, I guess, in the grand scheme of our conversation. But it's not like um there's some folks out there that have amazing branding and their beer struggles to meet the mark. I think he's accomplishing both. Now, there's going to be one that's chalked up on that board when we go there and visit one day, or that comes
Yeah. I
out
mean,
seasonally in a can that I'm going to be like, this is terrible. But thus far, has not been the case. So
I mean, you got to have some bad ones, right? But because also it's all preference. anyways.
Well,
So what I think is
that
bad, someone else is gonna like.
I agree, but also, I think, in business, I think this is something I hate to keep going back to that point, but like, dude, if you're keeping it between the lines and playing it safe, you're not going to grow. You're not going to get
Hmm.
big. You're not going to push the boundaries. You're not if you're not stretching for something that's the above and beyond, doing a little R&D, stretching yourself, putting yourself in an uncomfortable place, then you're not getting better. And I think they're willing to do that, and they're probably going to do that periodically, just so that they can grow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You got to take chances. You absolutely have to.
And again, I have no idea if it has anything to do with the New Testament or the Blue Testament being aligned. Maybe it's a whole separate book. Maybe it's not even a play on the New Testament. Maybe they're writing their own chapter, and that should be their
Mm,
branding. You know what I mean? That's
yeah.
that's probably a little sacrilegious, a bit. I mean, that toes the line. However, I do
I,
think that that's
mm,
pretty. It's their mark. It's what they're the history they're writing, I guess, for everyone to indulge in.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that I would like to think that the Blue Testament, they are writing it, and it's just all their beers.
Okay.
You know?
I still would like to get in touch with them, maybe drop a line. There's a chat function, or somewhere to send a note to them. The fuck is the bolt thing? Whose idea was that?
What are we
Yeah.
talking about Zeus or something now? We're talking about different kinds of gods. You know?
Great beer, great branding up to a flavor that strikes you like a bolt from the blue. All right.
Yeah. Don't get that one.
Also,
Yeah.
I would like to know on the German front, right? So, they claim they did the same thing with the Bach, obviously, and German is deeply rooted in many beers, anyways. But I would like to know how true they stay to traditional German in this Pilsner as far as the brewing process is concerned, just like they claim to do with the Satire Swill. Because if you remember, they were like, if you know good box, then you'll understand this is a great box. And there was some flamboyant um, pride, I guess, in that. So, yeah, I'm super interested in visiting, seeing, especially because of all of the theme throughout. But it'd also be great if they could explain during tour or when we go to the sanctuary how close they stay to the German tradition that they tout for each of their beers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I gotta believe that they stay pretty
Within
close.
reason.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about ingredient change up, probably. I would imagine that the process is probably similar. But yeah, we should definitely go do that. Go do that together.
I think that's just something that
So
like they're probably great with sharing, with giving back to their they seem to be great with giving back to the community or like they try to create that. In fact, it said that he established it because he wanted to bring friends together. It's probably a common theme amongst a lot of breweries, but he wanted to bring folks together, friends together to enjoy in one another's company.
yeah, which I think we've talked about before that we don't really get out and you know do things for other people very often, and I think we should more. And I did want to kind of touch on that a little bit more, uh, just because
Yeah,
like you go out and you see so many people doing things alone. I just always feel bad for people when they're like when they're alone. You know what I mean? Like I've we've been going out to eat a little more often, and I always see like the random just person by themselves eating. And if they're like busy doing something or whatnot, then that's different. But I always feel bad. And I've always kind of felt like that where I wanted to like ask them if I could join or if they wanted to join us or something. But I also feel like weird because some people would be like, no, leave me alone, because we
I,
just don't do that kind of thing anymore.
it's kind of so this is a different approach than we talked about. But before we talked about like trusting people and
Yeah.
about like how just give that guy a ride or
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
allow that guy to be your friend or like have a conversation with somebody. No, it was basically more about trusting, like in the hitchhiking sense, because they're human beings and we need to trust one another more because this whole fear of death, which is reality, I guess, it has overcome us. But this approach is a little bit different, right? Because you're saying just share in that person's time. There's not really a commitment to trust, or you're putting yourself in like if you're in public for God's sakes. But
Yeah, you're not even putting yourself in like a sketchy situation or anything. It's more or less just like like you don't, I don't know. I like you never know what people are going through, you know? And I feel like when you're alone out in public doing something, it's even more it's just like even weighs more on that person, you know? Like I know I would feel like that. Like if I went out to eat by myself and I was looking around and all these other people were like with people, you know, I'd be like, man, you
yeah,
know.
I don't. First off,
I mean,
I
situationally, of
love.
course.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I've got like my laptop out, which you already mentioned, but like if I've got my laptop out and I'm like doing work and I'm just trying to slam a sandwich or a two eat for 20 at a Chili's by myself on a Wednesdays or something like that, you know what I mean? Like leave me alone. I'm just trying to get through the day. That's not appropriate. But like if I am by myself, I would actually welcome it to a certain extent. Like there's nights, don't get me wrong, where I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to snag a meal. But I usually would welcome it. I like having conversations on a plane. I like having conversations at a bar with random people. Or if I'm at a restaurant, I would welcome it. But that's
Yeah.
not everybody. You know, you have to
Yeah,
be respectful of them.
I would like to point out too, I think it's even more fitting to do it in a bar setting or a brewery setting. Like if you see somebody just like sitting by themselves enjoying a beer, what's stopping you from like just go enjoying a beer with them, you know?
No. Well, and I
Go
think
have
it
a beer and have a conversation. You don't got to stay there the whole time. Just
I would think it's probably more common at a bar, but I do agree that like just hey, this person I could lend my company. Like okay, so as an example, like when you I love because I'm more of an extroverted person anyways, but I love when you're forced into that situation and everybody's forced into that situation because then there's this level of comfort like nobody instigated it we were just forced to. And here's my
mm,
example. So like when you go on cruises, when you go down for breakfast, they're just like, hey, there's 6 seats at this table. Like they won't split up your group, but they're like, hey, there's 6 people, like there's 6 seats at this table. We're gonna fill them with 6 bodies, right?
yeah.
So if there's 2 people in your party and 4 people in another, then you're sitting all at that table, okay? And it's just random. Like for dinner, your table's the same, but for breakfast, it's random. It's luck of the draw, and I love it because
I didn't
everybody
know that.
knows. Oh yeah,
I
dude.
didn't know. I thought they were all always assigned for every meal. It's confusing.
No, I mean, I've been on a couple of different ones, and every single breakfast has been random.
Okay, that's
Dinners
cool.
are assigned, but so the that societal like awkwardness of hey, that's a separate group, don't converse with them, that we're so normal to when we're out in public by ourselves is immediately shattered because nobody's guilty or the awkward one for initiating sitting with a different group of people because it's the guy at the door going, "Hey, I got to fill out this table." Um, so it breaks down that wall, which is the first step. The second step is maybe because it's people that are cruising. I'll give them that. There's a certain character that cruises. Okay, um,
Okay.
but it like because that wall is down immediately. It's like, hey, you really don't even have the little small talk. Like yeah, for, at the very beginning you're gonna have like, oh, okay, so what are you guys married? Okay, where are you from? Awesome. First cruise, second cruise, we're lifetime cruisers. Like all that kind of shit is gonna happen at first. But then after that, immediately they just get into the meat and potatoes of stuff. There's no more bullshit small talk. It's literally straight meat and potatoes. So if we could find a way to normalize that, as a thing outside of us being forced to do it in a cruise setting, I think that's what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think especially it's especially when I see older people when they're sitting
Oh yeah.
alone eating, you know, because we've been going to Luby's to eat, and obviously
Oh yeah, bro.
the crowd at Luby's is a little bit older. It's definitely not my generation, you
You
know.
know, by 30 or 40 years or so.
Yeah, but first of all, my we're slacking, guys, because Luby's has some great food. Okay, Luby's is putting out some great food
I mean,
and
I think it's
decent
technically
prices.
mostly in-house made, I believe.
I believe it's all in house made.
Yeah, it's
I
from
mean, for the most
scratch.
part.
Yeah,
Nothing frozen at least. I don't think
yeah,
like
the old
heated up or
Luann
whatnot.
platter.
But no, man. Like we went to go sit at a table and there was just this old guy eating by himself, and I was like, "There's three of us. There's another seat." But as we were sitting down to eat, he was getting up to leave, so it didn't matter anyways. But I was just like, man, I would have asked him. I mean, we're
Yeah,
just here to eat anyways. Like, what does it matter? We're gonna be here for an hour. If it
I
turns out to be a bad experience, then it's a 1 hour bad experience. You know what I mean?
yeah, and
And,
it's also a circumstance where like
but
I don't think it's gonna kill you.
no, and like, what if he had a really cool story? But that's what I always think about. Like the older people is they always have cool stories growing up, or from their childhood and stuff. Everybody has different story about growing up though, so I think we should do it with anybody, and I
I
think
it's
that's
it
what would be cool about doing it at a brewery as well.
the only the only other place I think that maybe I would burps are solid. The only other place where I think it happens a lot, like I go to a bunch of different trade shows or like, um, you know, organizations that we're a part of, dairy organizations, protein organizations, and that's how the lunches and dinners are for the most part. It's
Like,
just there's 8 seats at a table, and like a couple of them are reserved that that nobody has access to except for like a board or something like that. But all of the rest of them, it's like first come first serve. So you literally have to go around and be like, "Are these seats taken?" or whatever, right? And you're just fitting in. And so again, you're all kind of tied back to like a current, the same thing. So that's a little bit of a scapegoat. But I would say that 9 times out of 10, everyone's going to have a bunch of similarities, maybe because we're tied back to that same market or whatever. But there's going to be a lot of different folks. And I mean, like politically different, spiritually different, when they were raised, where they're from. And so it's always exciting conversation and it's worth the game. I feel like there's a lot more reward for the risk of interacting with somebody random. You know what I mean?
yeah, I agree. And in that situation, if you are going to do something like that, you have to be open to, learning about someone else's interests instead of just being like, ah, no, never mind. You know what I mean?
Well, and failing too, because like you said, like had that older gentleman sat with you guys, and it was just terrible. Like that's a risk that you got to take. But is it really going to kill you for an hour? And obviously, you guys are frequenting Lubies now, so it's not like it's going to ruin that.
Yeah.
I got to ruin that whole experience. You're never going to go back. Yeah, I don't know. It can backfire though. Okay, and here's my example, which I don't know if I've ever shared this with you specifically, but it used to haunt me until I realized how awesome it is to explain now. All right. So, flashback. I was like a sophomore maybe in college, and I'm going to make this as quick as possible, but I do have to set the temperature here.
Oh no, you're
So, I'm like
good. You're good.
I'm like a sophomore in college, and we used to do this philanthropy. We used to do this event to raise money for philanthropy. Okay, our philanthropy was the Children's Miracle Network, and we used to work this skeet shooting tournament for the Houma Oilmen's Association. Okay, and basically we were just guys to show up and like call birds, restock the slingers for skeet. We would shovel shotgun shells, move tables, cut grass, like whatever. We were just the labor, okay? But basically, we were free labor, and then they would donate on our behalf to the Children's Miracle Network a large, not a large, but a chunk of money, okay? And they would
Mhm.
also feed us um, every night after the event and then take care of us during the day. Okay. So that's what's going on. There's like 30 something shooting stations. And I had the luxury of going to school super early in the morning and then way late at night. So I was open all day to help with the event. Okay. Um, so I go first day, and the guy that's like heading it up, he just called us hands, by the way. We didn't actually go by names. He would just be like, hands, and he would just call us, right? Anyways, great guy. So he's like, Hands, we're gonna go get. We all load up or whatever, and it's us and then like all the people that work for the organization as well. And he's like, Hands, y'all get in the truck. We're gonna go get some of the Chinese buffet. And we're like, yes, sweet. So we load up. Well, we all pile out of these trucks. We go inside. We go through. You know how a Chinese buffet is. Everybody's seen one. There's millions of people in there. So I go to this section where everybody's sitting and there's like only like one seat left at this one table. And so I sit down, there's just a guy across from me. So we sit down, we're eating for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, hey, can you pass the pepper? And he's just like being really fucking weird about it. And he's like, I was like, soy sauce, he's passing it, and I'm just sitting and eating. The whole time, all of the guys and the leader, the one that called us Hands, is like sitting off in another section and they're just losing their shit, laughing their asses off. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on, right? And then finally the guy gets up and like he goes back to the buffet and they're like, Han, can we ask you something? And I'm like, what's up? And they're like, you know this guy? And I'm like, no, I don't know this guy, but I mean, he seems cool. Cause like I thought they were making fun of him, right? And they
Yeah.
were like, we don't know who the hell that is. He ain't with us. Why the hell are you sitting with him? And dude, so I sat with an unknown individual that for me, because I was like technically connected to everyone else that was in the restaurant, it was okay. But imagine what was going through this dude's mind when some random person sat down, tried to have conversation. I was like also trying to have conversation like, hey, how's the morning been for you? Like, we were kind of busy this morning, but now things are picking up. Aren't you glad that it's not raining? Like bullshit that obviously he was not on his mind because he wasn't with us. Okay, and he would pass me things, and he just kept like eating and putting his head down, like in hopes that maybe I would leave his table, realize that I don't fucking know him. Um, so, anyways, it was very embarrassing at the time because they then obviously the ongoing joke was they were like, well, this one will meet. Yeah, he'll make friends anywhere he goes. This one will, just like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so in that moment, right? So I'm a sophomore in college. There's all these like old ass grown ex oil guys, right, that are just living the dream with shotguns and side by sides poking at me at the Chinese buffet. I was like embarrassed at the time, but then I was like, you know what? That's a killer story. Like this, I'm sure somewhere
Yeah, it
that
is.
dude went, whether it was that day or for years and years afterwards, went back and he was like, dude, you're not gonna believe what happened to me at this
Right.
Chinese buffet when I was down the by. This son of a bitch sat down in that chair and they ate an entire meal across from me, asked me about my day, how I was doing, how I got involved. Anyways, yeah, so that was the story. So long story short, as awkward as that was, let's normalize that. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe with
man.
a maybe with an ask, don't just sit down and assume that it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe ask. But
Definitely
yeah, dude,
ask.
it was weird. I remember thinking to myself like it didn't even dawn on me until they started like looking like what the hell is this? What's going on here?
Yeah, that's pretty that's pretty funny, dude.
Yeah, dude.
It,
It
it so,
was it was a while too, because we were at a buffet. Think about this: we were at a buffet. It's not like you just
so
sit
okay,
down and eat.
so were you getting up and refilling and coming back?
Yes, I was getting up and refilling and coming back. Also, there were like
No.
share. Listen to this. This is even worse.
No.
Yeah, he had like a plate of like crab ragoons and those little cornbread things, and I thought he got them for the table. So he's eating those off of this fucking dude's plate. Oh god. Was like joint dipping in his sweet and
Man,
sour sauce, and he just let it happen.
that
That
ain't
might have
no
been.
way.
Can you imagine if somebody just walked in, sat down, and started sharing your appetizer with you that you didn't even know?
Dude, especially at a buffet, bro.
Dude, he listen. The other thing, I asked, like, he went one
It's
time,
like
and
it's like you
I was like, hey, can you grab me another fork? Shit, man. Because I thought he was with us, and he was the nicest dude. He did, but
Uh, dude, it's like
yeah,
just imagine going to a buffet and just scoping out what each. what each table has already grabbed, and that's where you sit at.
Yeah, dude,
Oh,
it was quite the experience. Yeah.
it's not like you sat down for a plate and you were like, all right, man, I'm gonna go refill and go hang out with my friends now. It's
No.
just,
No, I enjoyed half of his appetizer plate that he built for himself, shared his sweet and sour, and asked him to
uh,
gather things from the buffet for me because I thought he was with our group.
you know what? Don't be like you. Be like the other guy.
Yeah, so that okay, that's the
Be
point.
him.
At any time, at any time,
Oh,
he could have been like, "Hey, I don't know you."
or like, hey man, you mind like grabbing your own plate of?
He literally, I think maybe he was just like, "Hey, there's not another seat in here." But yes, you're right. The moral of the
Okay,
story is
okay. There's no
be like
way there
that.
was not another seat at a buffet, at a
Yeah,
Chinese buffet.
it was a big ass buffet, but but the moral of the story is be like that guy. He didn't once question me. He gathered things for a human being he didn't know from the buffet. He let me share. Like, I mean, I wasn't double dipping, but like break the ragoon and dip it in the sauce that he was also dipping in. It wasn't on his plate, but it was like a shared
Was
plate
it
he built
was
for
it was
himself.
it was it in the middle of the table, or
Yeah,
were you
real
like
quick.
reaching over
No, I was reaching over, but here's the thing. It's like I just said it's like a shared plate that he built for
for
himself
himself?
because here's the thing. It wasn't shared until I took it upon myself to share this table with this man. Okay?
Oh man, I wonder if he
Yeah.
built the plate like that on purpose because you were sitting with him.
I don't I can't remember if it was there or not when I sat down, but
No
even
way.
if not, here's the thing. Be that guy because he was like, "Hey,
Yes.
I don't know what's up with this guy, but he asked me for a fork and a napkin. I better go ahead and double down on the crab ragoons because I know he's gonna think that I got him for both of us." You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, man. He's just being a good guy, you know?
I almost feel like maybe I should have paid his check. Like I don't even know how that worked.
Just hand him a 10 and say this for next time you're at the buffet. I got
Yeah,
you.
maybe I just assumed that the boss man was picking it up. I don't know, man. It was a weird experience, but it was great. I'm glad that I could share that. But ultimately, the moral of the story is we need more people and we need to focus on normalizing being that random guy that I sat with at that Chinese buffet. In
Yes.
fact, he doesn't seem like the kind of cat that would be on like Lost Connections with Craigslist, and I don't want to like gray the lines of what that would be. Plus, I don't know
Looking
who's using Craigslist, but
looking for nice guy I met at Chinese buffet.
we shared a moment, and by shared, I mean a table and crab
Crab
ragoons
rangoons.
and sweet and sour sauce. You passed me 4 sweet and low packets over the span of 30 minutes.
You grabbed me a
Um,
fork and a napkin.
I failed to catch your name or why, in fact, you did not call out that I didn't know you. Hit me up. I just want to connect. Say thank you for starting a revolution. I've been working towards paying it forward ever since. Um, whoever you were at the random down the by a Chinese buffet.
Yeah. So, yeah, real quick though, you mentioned something earlier about the cruises and how like you're kind of like they're gonna fill the tables no matter what,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
This is something I feel like we should translate to any restaurant, right?
Yeah,
Because it would have to be situationally, and you'd have to ask. I feel like you'd have to ask your guests in that
like
situation or not.
like kind of like golf,
Yes,
right?
yes,
When you're like,
exactly.
hey, you're a three, can I jump? Make it a foursome. It makes the whole process more efficient for the
Yes,
marshal,
exactly.
the course. Yeah,
So like I'm just gonna name like let's just say you go to Texas Roadhouse, right?
I
And it's
knew it. I knew it because that's the perfect example.
right, and it's packed, right? It's packed, but like in the sense of there's a four table or a four top, right? But there's only
Two
two
people.
people at it. And
Yeah.
maybe they're on a date and they don't want to be bothered, and that's fine. They can say no, we're doing something. But like if the waitress or the waiter, the server, let's say server, is just told to maybe instead of making a two person party wait, go ask around and see if anyone's willing to have two people join them. What's
It-
stopping us as a society from doing that?
There's nothing. The problem is I don't think that. I mean, there's a very small percentage of people that would be willing to take that upon themselves. Like, imagine, think about someplace like Roadhouse that gets busy as shit, right? People are waiting out front. They're waiting in that little cubby, eating all the peanuts, the little
Yeah,
pews that are over there. Huh? Tying it back to the brand. Anyways,
there you
they're
go.
all just chilling. They're all just chilling out there. And there's going to be a very few percentage of people, in fact, none that I've ever met, that are going to take it upon themselves to hustle another two top to make a four to make the process efficient.
Yeah,
Okay. We should do that. That's what you're saying that we should do and we should promote. And I'm all for that. But I think the restaurant, to your point, could incentivize efficiency by having like a whiteboard and make it a game. Having a whiteboard,
yeah. Sign
or
up.
or a chalkboard where it's like, hey, are you less than a full top? Put your name up here, and this could bump you earlier if we marry up to two tops or two,
Yeah,
yeah, right? And so the people that are waiting are like, oh shit, it's Roadhouse on a Friday night. It's going to take forever. But if we roulette tables, then fucking sweet. You know what I
bro.
mean?
That can make for such a fun experience. It's like a game night, bro.
Dude,
You
you
never know
could
who you're gonna get
also,
matched up against.
yeah, and it could happen while you're there, but you could also, I mean, in today's day and age, app it like on an app.
Yes, yeah.
Dude, like
That would
you're
make it a
like,
lot
hey,
more efficient.
two top looking for two other two tops or two top looking for two top, to double, and you just hit a button and it's like, hey, meet, and restaurants bid on it, right? So now they're filling their house by doubling up on this. They're dedicating space to it. So now it's like meet at Roadhouse off of 45 and you're going to meet your two top and you're guaranteed a spot at 6. But as a two top, you couldn't get a reservation, you see? And they
Yeah,
maximize their turns. It's great for the restaurant. It's great for humanity that we've already made the point on. That's a
yeah.
good idea.
This is just. I just think. I mean, what's stopping restaurants from doing that? Like you said, I mean, I think it makes. It might make it a. I mean, I don't actually know. I don't think it would make it more difficult for the server. I mean,
No,
they split tickets all the time. It's not like it's a. You don't have to pay together. You just split the ticket.
yeah,
Give.
split the ticket. And it's doubling their volume. I mean, I don't want to say doubling, right? Because they might be getting full tabletops, but it's upping their overall heads, their overall tops, their
I would
turns.
say.
So
I would say so because it's going to open up more seats if you do it that
yes,
way.
if you had a two top that sat there for 30 minutes and then another or whatever an hour, and then you had another two top that sat for an hour, you got four over the span of 1 hour, whereas you could have had eight
Yeah,
over the span of 2 hours. See what I'm saying?
exactly. You could have got more heads in the door
I'm
or
just
heads at
saying.
the table. It's a good idea, man. Look, we're being more social. We're talking to more people. We're telling stories. We're learning, and we're being more efficient as a society.
Dude, it's a win for everyone. I mean, obviously, there's going to be circumstances where, like, I mean, not that you should be out. Like, maybe somebody is,
I mean, sometimes you
has a
don't want
food
to.
allergy or so. Yeah, well, I mean, there could be a valid reason too. Like maybe they're under the weather. Again, I don't know why they would be out, but or they have somebody with a severe allergy that everyone's respectful of. I get those circumstances, but few and far between. I think there's a lot that's the exception rather than the rule when it comes to sharing space with people.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. We need. You know what?
Dude, trademark that.
Yeah,
We should. I
trademark.
mean, I don't want to say trademark it, because I
We're
don't think it's something we should make money off of. But
Yeah, this is just a system that needs to be implemented at every restaurant.
yeah, if anything, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I guess the only money that could be made off of it is selling the concept to a restaurant and then proving the ROI to their business for it. But we don't need to go down that. We're trying to save humanity's ability to connect with one another. That's the ultimate goal here.
Yeah, yeah,
If you build it, they will come. Okay, we build it first, and then the money comes after, or the betterment in society. Let's say that.
yeah. That's the currency that I'm going for here. A better
That's right.
society.
That
Yeah,
that's the reward. That is the climax we're looking for.
yeah. Arguably the greatest feeling of all time, right? The
So I
goat.
see what you. Oh, the goat. Yes. The greatest feeling of all time.
The gafote.
The float.
The gafote.
The gafote. Greatest feeling of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of goats, OTB, Tom Brady's hanging it up.
Yeah, it was time. We saw it coming.
Yep.
We saw it coming last year, and then he came back, but we saw it coming this year.
Did it on his terms. We saw the Instagram post. Seemed genuine.
Yeah. All right.
Hats
Well, there,
off.
there was something else that you wanted to talk about, though.
Yeah, so
Before we get to the
lastly,
emails.
and it actually got us thinking, right? We were talking about sinners. We were talking about versus saints in the back pew. We were talking a little bit about just the Bible theme and the religious theme, and it made me think of especially when we're going down the path of sinners. I was thinking of snakes, right? A lot of biblical reference to snakes being on the evil side of things, and it got me thinking. And here's the question that I posed. So there's a particular YouTube channel that we watch. I don't know if it's necessarily something we would plug, but anyways, there's a specific channel that we watch, and there's a guy in Florida, and he has all of these venomous reptiles. He's got alligators and stuff too, but venomous reptiles. And he's super educational. I mean, obviously, he's a little quirky, he's a little weird, but he's a younger guy. And so he really connects, I think, on a certain level with kids, but also with, younger adults. But he has all these venomous snakes, and he educates you in a fun way about them. Like he talks about, like how important it is, to be prepared with PPE and like the regulations he needs to be a handler. He also talks about like, the fun facts of the snake, their temperament. He breeds them, but like is also very um, mindful in how he breeds them because he doesn't want them to inbreed, which can create deficiencies in
Mm-hmm.
the behaviors of the snakes and so on and so forth. So he's a like a very great reptile conservative person. But the kids absolutely love him, and I love to watch it because it's great information. However, the issue is that over time he has kind of made them very comfortable with their approach to snakes. We've never seen an example of this, but like when the snakes pop up, because he's handling them all the time, they know, oh, this one's a good snake. And I'm like, that's still
Still a snake.
a an inland taipan, the most venomous snake in the world, right? Or a
Yeah.
gaboon viper, right? The longest fangs. All of these different things. Um, so my question was this: do we think there's? I love to watch the guy. I think he's super educational. But do we think, to a certain extent, it is desensitizing them to the threats of a snake if they were to see it in real life? Because they will still say, "Ooh, that's a snake," "Ooh, or that's scary," or "Ooh, that's a nasty snake," or whatever, but they are very comfortable with the different personalities that his have because he educates us so much on them. So are they becoming desensitized to what a snake could potentially do? That's my question.
Let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Did Steve Irwin desensitize us?
I don't think so because he made sure that you respected them. And this guy does the same. It's Chandler's Wildlife, by the way. We're just gonna plug it. It's Chandler's Wildlife.
Okay.
Um, but I would say he's it's different because these aren't in the wild. They're in like cages, and he uses them to educate folks. So you kind of see the captivity piece, right? So feeding is different. Maintain. I mean, dude, he's constantly cleaning. It seems like a never ending, and a lot of it's for video. So I don't know if he has a crew that works with him, but like this dude will be passing through, and he'll see like a water bowl, and he's like, "Hey, um, there's poo in that water bowl. I need to get in there and get it out." And I'm like, there's also uh, an Indian cobra in there that is not very happy right now because it's shedding, right? And its eyes are grayed over, and he's not pumped. Okay.
Hmm.
Anyways, there's just so many things. No, Steve Irwin didn't desensitize me at all. I think if anything, he educated you on how important it was. He had a certain comfort level that I maybe Chandler does share, but I also think that. we
But
were
I'm
watching it as a show in the wild. You know what I mean?
okay. So that's the because I haven't seen this guy's YouTube channel, so I don't know the kind of content he's pushing out. That's why I'm kind of asking, because obviously the Irwins, even his son now, which his name's slipping my mind, but his son's very much like he is in the sense of like there's just a snake crossing the road and he'll just get out and grab it, you know, and be like, this is the blah 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 blah, you need to be careful around this and don't do this with it and whatnot, and then kind of lets it go or whatever. That's kind of how I always remember Steve Irwin doing stuff, and I was like, oh man, that's really cool and that's good to know, but I'm never doing that.
Yeah, I
You know
mean,
what I mean?
like I said, the only thing that makes it a little bit different is that these are in captivity. And so there's
Also, is it videos for kids, or is it just informational videos overall?
no, I wouldn't say they're for, they're not distasteful by any, I mean, there's certain innuendos he'll make sometimes, but they're appropriate. Like it wouldn't be anything a Pixar or Disney film doesn't allude to now. Um, as far as like reproducing or things like that. Um, but I don't think that they're not all like, ooh, like, for kids, it's very like just informational. And a lot of it's like, you know, maintaining cages and breeding and, yeah,
because I
just,
because I think if you're worried about it making your kid, this isn't directed at you, this is just at anybody,
yeah, yeah, in
but if
general,
it
that's the question I'm posing.
if you're worried about something like that making your kids like not worry about a wild animal more, then maybe just don't let them watch it,
I know, you're right,
you know
100%. But,
because it's
but
just
there's,
spreading good information, but sometimes a kid doesn't understand that. And I know that's what you're getting at, but like, that's kids don't know that like, hey, if I see one of those out in the wild, I'm going to go grab it now. Like, no, you shouldn't do that.
yeah,
He's just trying to inform you that like they're not always, going to be a-holes, they're
no,
just being protecting of their stuff and themselves just like we would, you
well,
know what I mean?
and I think he does a very good job of being like, "Hey, do not mess with this. Like, do not do this at all.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to educate folks on what this snake is, and this is how it's neurotoxins versus aflatoxin. I don't know what all the different toxins are. Obviously, he's not doing the best job. I've seen like a million of his videos, but anyways, I think so. He'll
Well,
educate on
well,
that.
maybe
So
you're just not listening enough.
maybe I'm just looking over at the kids, making sure they're not one to pick one up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so he's not like, oh, it's fine and you should never hurt them. I mean, he is very mindful of like there's a good place and a bad place to be in regards to a snake. I don't know. Anyways, I just thought, but you're right. It's maybe on my. It's not his fault. It's my fault, right, for the
No,
exposure.
I
Well,
think
and I
it.
want
I
to say
think
fault, but like that's the problem,
it's
right?
it's your worry, I guess. Like it's not his issue. It's your, if you as a parent are saying like, hey, maybe that this right now is not good content for my kids because maybe they're going to be desensitized to an actual wild animal encounter. Maybe they shouldn't be watching this yet. Maybe we should give it a couple years.
Yeah,
I think that's what it
that's
comes down to.
That's a good point. Although it did give me like one thing that I do want to comment on. It did give me a little bit of relief when you brought the Steve Irwin thing up because you're right. I never once was like, "Oh, I should definitely go grab a black mamba or
Yeah,
an eastern brown." You know what I mean?
still
Not that
just
I could.
absolute wild. And I mean, well,
Um,
and I brought that up too because like he did that as in for his life, for his living, for his life, for his purpose or whatever was to take care of animals and make sure that animals were respected and whatnot. And one of those animals killed him
but all yes, and
because
here's
that's just even when you're an expert, and that first of all that absolutely shook me. I think it shook the world, but
yeah to
it
the
it
core.
it it just showed everybody who loved that show and enjoyed it took another step back and respected everything that he did and started to respect all the animals again, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think for a little while there, people were starting to get kind of like, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I would assume people were, probably getting a little more comfortable than they should have because of
Yeah,
the things he was doing.
I also, he also got a lot of backlash for like having his kids raised around that, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think he should not have gotten so much pushback from folks because that's the way that he was raised. And he was as mindful as possible and educating his children. I guarantee you the conversations he had with his kids were um obviously don't kill any snake or kill any animal. They're fine in their own right, but be very very mindful that at any moment they could be your killer. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if Chandler necessarily feels like that at all at this point. He get really gives me some of those like super smart guy, super informational, but he also does give me like those palette of Bush Light mullet Florida vibes, like on the weekends. You know what I mean? So,
Mm.
which is maybe why he's so relatable. But I
Yeah,
digress.
my man. I can get behind this guy.
Yeah, check it
I can
out.
get behind this guy. All right. Well, we have come to the end of the episode here, so we're going to read off the ratings. I'll start first as usual. For entry, I gave this bad boy a 4. I think it was pretty solid on the entry. Aftertaste, I think I agree with you. After you let it sit for a little bit, it's not bad. It's just not great. So I gave it a 3.
Yep.
Body 4. It's a solid flavor. Nothing great, nothing horrible. Color, I thought when you poured it, it looked perfect almost, but I gave it a 5. Bitterness, I'm giving it a 5. It's pretty solid. Um, Acidity, a 4. Again, pretty middle of the road there. Fizz, I gave it a 4 as well. The burps came in quick. They were consistent, but not. They didn't come very often. As often as I would expect for myself for 2 beers in an hour. So that brings me to a total of 29, which is also what the Satire Swill got, I believe. 29. So consistent
I'm.
across the board with me,
I
I
would
guess.
say. I would say. I know that they're two completely different beers, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Two,
no, I got you. I think the Satire Swill was more on point for a Bach than this was. Like this is a great beer, but to call it an American Pilsner, I didn't get. It's not super Pilsnery, and it's a little crafty. That being said, it's a great beer, but it's not as true to, I guess the roots that they're claiming. Still, love the brewery, love the beer, but on entry, I have a 5. It came in what I was wanting. Again, not true Pilsner, but boom, came in what I was wanting. Aftertaste, I did have it a 2 because the longer we kept drinking, like so, I mean, this is the second one and it's been quite a little while, but if I keep consuming, it's fine. I've let
yes.
this last little sip sit for probably about the last 5 minutes, maybe. Somebody's gonna play the video back and be like, "That's bullshit. He's lying." But anyways, let's say 5 minutes, okay? And the taste is continuing to decline, but still be there.
Yes. So that's
Um,
that's kind of what I said earlier though is like it's an aftertaste that brings you back for more. So I mean it's good for them, makes you drink want to drink more, but yeah, I agree.
Not that anybody cares that it's a category or it's relevant, but like this is definitely a breath or two. Like if you have one of these bad boys, it's you're gonna smell it on your breath for a couple days,
Ooh.
maybe. Anyways, body I've got 4. Not the best, but solid enough. Color I also have a 4. Could have been a little bit darker and or greener. I don't want to say darker, but greener. And not just because of the bottle, but there needs to be more of a green hue. Not St. Patty's hue, but anyways, bitterness. I've got a 3. It was just dead center. There's nothing wrong. By the way, if you look at the scale, 6 is perfect. Uh, 3 is like run of the mill 4. You know what I mean? Three to
Yeah.
four is run of the mill.
Yeah.
Acidity, I have a three as well. Fizz, I have a three. I think it was fruitful at the beginning, and then, I mean, it wasn't as fruitful at the beginning, and then it picked up in the middle, and now it's dropped off again. So I have a total of 24. Not a bad rating. I would definitely buy it again. I would definitely go back and drink it. Um, and I already have my answer to where I would, but what's yours?
I was gonna say because so on the website this is described as your on the water beer, which I can really see. Uh, in fact, this would be not so much a lake beer for me, but a river beer.
Okay.
I would buy this. I would especially want to buy this if I was going to float the river because one, I feel like I'd be able to consume a lot of them. Two, I would want to consume a lot of them because of the aftertaste thing we talked about. I would want to keep going. And three, it it is a little lighter in my taste. It tastes a little lighter. So I do feel like I'm hydrating a little bit, even though I'm not. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be hot. I'm gonna be on the water. So that's what it's a river beer for me.
Nothing sneakier than that false sense of hydration, though.
Yeah. Always mix in water, regardless. Let's just say that. But that
That's our disclaimer.
that's what I'd be doing for sure.
So mine is very, very specific. I have to explain the scenario very briefly, I promise. But it's a buddy's lawn beer. All right.
Mm.
So this is what I mean. You got a buddy. He's I'm cutting the grass, then I'm gonna throw some stuff on, or I'm cutting the grass. I'm at the house. The wife and kids are out of town. Just cutting the grass, having some beers. You bring this, you show up, and you're like, yeah, dude, I'll help you knock out the grass. Like, I don't know, maybe it's he's cutting it for a rent house that he has, or he's cutting it because he's let his overgrow. It doesn't matter. You're showing up with these beers. You are not going to touch and or do one fucking thing on that lawn, but you're going to show up and morally support that cat. That's what I think of with this beer. You're showing up with a sixer, all gung ho. He thinks you're coming for support. At best, you're just going to talk shit about how he's doing it wrong the whole time.
Nah,
That's what this
man, you
beer
got to
is.
go in diagonals, bruh.
Listen, dude,
Diagonals.
everybody thinks that you need to have the solid string, but the feed system is where it's at. Let me show you. You start looking it up on YouTube. He gets bored, walks away, actually starts doing the weed eating. You consume more Buddy lawn beers. That's what I'm calling these. BLBs, baby. Buddy lawn beers.
So what? Hold on. What would you WWUBD? What would you be doing?
Yeah.
WWYBD. There we go.
BWYBD.
And you would be
Yeah.
doing
BLB. Buddy
BLB.
lawn beers.
All right, nice. All right. Well, it's that time. I'm going to tell you to go follow us on social media on Twitter and TikTok at Off the Tap Pod and on Instagram at Off the Tap Podcast. We're also on Facebook at Off the Tap Podcast.
And as one last note of insight, whether it's a sinner's fizz, whether it's a saint's fizz, talk shit to your buddy while you're enjoying it.